Welcome back to part 2 of ex1 Colorize Farm, and what we're going to do in this part is focus on some advanced techniques on the Colorize layers. And remember, you're going to finish up the barn itself, so even though I'm not doing that, you're going to do that. Just want to point that out. And I'm not going to do all of it. I'll let you work on the rest of it, make a new layer for your barn and work on your barn and do that. But one thing I want to point out here, if you didn't like this color, the problem is if you chose another color, it wouldn't match up the same if you just change it. But what you could do is you could change it when you're done. And I'll even mention something else. Like if you did this, if you wanted the grass more of a yellow color, you could go in this layer. And what you could do is you could go to Image, Adjustments, and go to Hue Saturation. And if you saturate a little bit that way, you desaturate it, you adjust the hue a little, and you can make it a little more yellow. And if you adjust the lightness, you could kind of lighten it up a little bit. You know, if you wanted it more saturated, if you wanted bluegrass, whatever, you can make it look more like straw, like a little more burnt. You could do that. The only problem with this is it's permanent. So once you make that change, if you need to go paint in on it again, it'll be hard to match that color again. I guess you'd have to kind of turn off the color and go back and match it. And I just want to show you something. This is kind of an advanced thing, but I'll actually cancel this. And there's another way to make a change that's editable. Let's say you wanted to make this editable. You didn't know if you wanted a yellower grass or greener grass. You could go in here and make a adjustment layer. And you could go Layer, Adjustment Layer, and you could use it for hue saturation because that's what you'd want to be doing. And it puts it right above here. And what's nice about this is it works on the layer below it. So you can adjust the hue. If you want to make it yellower, if you want to adjust the saturation, whatever. But if you notice what's happening, it's doing it to everything. It's lightening the entire image. So it's working on everything below it. That's the only problem with doing this. Now, let me get out of here and I'll just hit reset here the way it was. Now, what you could do, if you go to here, and I'll put this back. All right, I guess this thing makes it go way up here. The way you can make it affect only the layer below it, which is what you'd want to do, you don't want it affecting all the layers, is you do something called clipping mask. So if you just went on hue saturation and you went to layer and you said clipping mask, it will only affect the grass layer. Now it seems like a lot of work, but that's the way it is in Photoshop too. So now if you went here and double clicked, I guess on this thing, then you can adjust the saturation, make it more yellow. It's only affecting the grass. If you want to lighten it, you could even lighten it. Remember, it's on color mode, so it's not going to do a whole lot. So it's only affecting the color, so lightness doesn't do a lot. But saturation, more or less, hue, if you want it blue or not, or whatever, just want it more yellow. That way, if you did that, and I'll go over here and turn this off and close that up. That way, if you did that, you can always go back and edit it again. You can go back and even reset it the way it was. And that's kind of a nice thing. And that's good to know that you can do that in Photoshop or Photopea. So let me get used to this thing here. I'm not used to using that. So using that's called a clipping mask only affects the layer below it. So if you wanted to do that to the sky, let's try it to the sky. Let's go on sky and then say layer, new adjustment layer. And same thing, hue saturation. And right away, let's go to layer, clipping mask. And that means it'll only affect the layer below it, which is the sky. And that way, if you wanted to make the sky a little more realistic, you can go here and make it less. Maybe you want the hue a little more bluer. Actually, that looks a little better. I'll make it a little more bluer. Maybe, no, that's okay. Maybe just a little more bluer. And that's it. And I'll close this up. And that looks good. And I could always go back and edit it. So it's a adjustment layer and then with a clipping mask, so it only affects the layers below it. So, we're doing a simple exercise here, but I'm showing you a little bit more advanced kind of operations here that you may not have worked with. And again, the fact that we're making an adjustment layer, we could have just done hue saturation one time and been done with it. But now the fact that we're doing that, you can go back and keep working on it. In fact, if you needed to do more to the sky or more to the grass, you can almost just kind of turn this off and then go back and work on the grass. You can even, like I said, you could go here and turn it back to normal and take your eyedropper, which I found here under the crop, and kind of go here, add that to your swatches, Just hit that arrow, define new, then you have the green. Then you always have these here, and then I'll put it back on color. And then if you had to keep working on the grass in there, behind it, I didn't do some of this area behind it, you could keep working, painting in that color, and then when you turn on your hue saturation, it'll affect all that. It'll always affect, so whatever you do. So if I go in here and, you know, just to give you an example, I'll zoom in here, I'll paint a little with the green, you know, just so you can see it. I'll paint a little green over here, and I'll zoom out. I didn't do all that stuff, but I just did a little bit. That way, if I edit that, then if I turn this back on, you can see it makes it that more of a gold kind of color. So that's an adjustment layer and a clipping mask, so it only affects one layer below it. And we're also using these layers in this color mode, this colorize mode of kind of a layer modes, I guess they call them, that we're using here. And you can even turn down the opacity, lots of things you could do. But once you're done, once you do the barn, you can make it a red barn, gray, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do just to kind of get some practice doing this. Whenever you're done, if you happen to be working in this mode, what you can do is just copy it. Now let's see, they have a save. We already did publish online. Okay, I just want to show you one thing here. I did some investigating after the fact, and I found out that when you use that publish online, this method here where you go publish online, it only works for one shot, meaning it will not save incrementally. In other words, after you do work, you can publish it online and it'll save your Photoshop file. But if you initially publish online and then you do a bunch of work, it will not save it unless you publish online again. I think that's the way it works. So just for example, I have this published online right now, and you can see it has NE3. But if I go back and I decide I want to change the barn color, I'll go to my barn color, I'll go to my hue saturation, and I'll open up the hue here, and maybe I'll make my barn a different color. I'll make it blue or something, and I'll turn down the saturation. I'll make it kind of a faded blue looking barn. Maybe I'll do something like that, okay? And I'll close that up. So I made a little change there, you know, whatever. So I did that. Now, it's not going to incrementally save this, so I think what you have to do, now normally if you have it saved to your hard drive, just save. Just go File, Save, and you could do that. But if you use the Publish Online option, you're not going to have save. And so you got to go File, Publish Online again. And I'm not sure if it makes a new one. Let's just see what happens. Let's see, I just made a change and I go Publish Online. See, now it made a new one with the blue. And this one, I think this will go back however it was originally done. In other words, let me copy this. Let me just copy this and open a new tab, and I'll go here and I'll paste it. And there it has the red. That's the original one with the red. So it didn't save the change in the blue. The one with the change of the blue is this one. So it makes a new URL every time you make changes. So if you're going to use this method, I would recommend just waiting till you're done to publish online, because then you could just turn it in. So for the next part of the video, just watch what I did, but just keep in mind that it does not save incrementally when you publish online. It only will save it at the end. And again, that's better than nothing because it's saving it for free. You don't have to pay for any cloud space or anything like that, but I just wanted to point that out as far as doing that. So now I'm going to get back to the previous video that I was recording, and you could kind of check that out, because the previous one I didn't do the red barn things. So when you're finished and you published it, what I'll do is I'll go back to my Warren to turn it in, and I'll go to our course, the GRD 122, go to coursework, and hopefully I open this up, and there it is, Colorize Photopea, and I'll click on the exercise itself, and I'll add a comment, and all you have to do, if you did this method, you can just click on Insert Link and paste it. I'll go here, I'll paste it, there it is. That's the same one, ends in SQL. And then choose New Window. So it opens up in a new window. And just hit Save. And that's it. You turned in your Photopea file. I guess everybody can do that. There's no reason everybody couldn't do that. For whatever reason, if you had a problem doing that, you could always add a second comment, and you can go to Photopea and then just save as PSD and save it down as PSD. I think I already did. or you could just go File, Export as JPEG, which will go to your downloads. Now, I'd recommend doing the Publish Online just to see how that works, because it's easier for me to see your Photoshop. Because if you download the JPEG and then you go here and you upload the image of the JPEG, and let me just mention what I did here. I went to Insert Image. I went to Find File. I go to Upload. And there's Colorize Farm JPEG, not the PSD. There it is. And then I hit Insert. And you could leave it like that. And there, it actually puts the image in there. Now that's fine, except I only just see the image. I don't see what you did in Photoshop. I can't go here and see that you did the layers correctly or any of that. But so I'd recommend you trying doing the other way, trying to do that Publish Online, because I think it's interesting, and we'll see if there's any problems with doing that, seeing how it's saving, like is it auto-saving as you go and all that kind of stuff. But either way, so if you decide to just turn in the image, that's fine. If you want to turn in your link, that way I can go and actually see your file and check it out. So I just wanted to point that out, because that's a public file that's saved for Photopea, and they just save it for a short amount of time. 6 months is actually long, so it's through the whole semester. So anyway, that's our Colorize exercise. So I just wanted to kind of do a simple exercise where we're just painting, but we're introducing some new techniques like colorizing a layer, which we've used on covered bridge things in the past. I think we might have done a little bit of that when we did like a sepia tone kind of look, but this is actually painting colorizing, so it's the same actually operation. We're just painting, but to make it more flexible, we're kind of changing the colors. We're using an adjustment layer, so if you want to change the colors after the fact and make it nicer, that way, if you don't pick the perfect color, you can go back and change it. And we're using adjustment layers so that it's editable. So if you didn't like the goldish color, you could go back and make it green. If you didn't like the sky color, you could lighten it or do something else. You could make it red, like a sunset or something, whatever. But these are just some advanced techniques in Photoshop, although we're doing it in Photopea since we're over the weekend, to do that a little bit. And we're going to be doing more of that in Photoshop. We'll do things in Photopea when we can if we're not at school. So that's what you're going to do for your EX1. So try to get that done before the next class. Either if you send me your JPEG or send me your link if you publish online in Photopea. And if you have any questions, any problems or anything, just email me.